We decided to expand the back tee box on 11 Lakes. It is just way too small for how this hole is designed. Mud Creek actually runs right in the middle of it, so it splits the fairway in half, which gives quite a challenge to the golfer. Some people like to go for it and use their driver, high risk, high reward type shot. But most people use irons or hybrids off the tee box. They like to lay it up. Tee box almost acts like a par 3. It receives a lot of abuse, and we wanted to do something about it. Usually around July or August, the tee box is so beat up, it's almost unplayable, and that's no fun for the golfers. This expansion should allow us to move the tees enough to allow the tee box to recover, and hopefully in the long run be able to last all season and therefore make the golfer experience more enjoyable. For the first part of this video, I'm going to narrate for you. I lost the original videos I recorded while trenching for new irrigation. Here in these pictures, it's showing what I did. I trenched a new line. We didn't have all the sprinkler heads working over in this area, so I basically just went from a sprinkler head that I knew did work, and I just went ahead and wired it from that one to add in another sprinkler head. The three that water the tee form a triangle, and now they all effectively give that back tee the space it needs to water.
I didn't have a transit to level out this tee, so I'm using the next best thing, in my opinion, which is setting up 2x4s, leveling them all out, and then double checking and triple checking the levels to make sure it's where I want it. Here I'm cutting away the existing tee. Since we're going to reseed the whole entire thing, I'm just going to start fresh and actually use some of this material to build up the left-hand side, which is actually fallen away, so we need some material there to help build it up. Okay, so this is after we ran the sod cutter over the entire tee box, and what that gave us, basically these thin sheets, which is exactly what we want. Peels it off. Ground's a little bit frozen, so it's kind of stiff, but this is exactly what we want. Peeled right up. Everything is ready to go. Now the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to take the front loader and basically just push all this stuff. That'll be the easiest way to do what we want it to do. Some of you may wonder, well, Brian, this looks like a halfway decent stand of turf. Why don't you just reuse this on the tee box? Well, that's actually a good question. You can do that, and I would do that if it was a smaller tee extension, but since we're expanding over half of this, we're just going to seed the whole thing so we get a nice even stand of turf. Plus tee sod may look good, but you gotta think over the course of the season how much we move the tee markers back and forth. It's really not a very good stand of turf. It just kind of disintegrates. Like I said, right now it's frozen, so it's not doing that, but I guarantee you if this was thawed out and we were going to go roll it up and reuse it, it would just kind of break apart on us. So that's why we're just going to seed the whole entire thing. The next step of 2 Lakes tee extension will be to remove all this existing sod. We ran the sod cutter over the existing tee and we kind of shaped it how we want it. This was kind of like a figure 8 looking tee, and honestly that's where it pinches in the middle is a waste of tee space. You might as well oval it out. So that's what we did. I don't know if you could see this red dot line or dashed line. We basically squared up the tee, so we'll be able to use that as available teeing space. But we ran it over, and we're going to use some of this material to actually fill in some really low depressions based off of our levels over there, so we can save a little bit of money on soil. It's a good way to reuse some of this sod, so we're not just throwing it away. We'll be on to the next step of removing it with the front loader. Now that we have the existing tee stripped, pushed out, filled in the low depressions, the next step will be to haul in soil. Looks like there's going to be some rain in the forecast coming up in the next few days, so we probably won't do it before then. But after that, it looks like some good weather to start hauling some soil. And we'll be able to fill in the remainder of the gap between the boards and the ground. Once we get that accomplished, we'll really pack it down. We really need to start firming up the surface because really that's going to be what the tee is. And then we're going to heavy top dress, add some sand, start tilling it in together, repack it to give a really nice soil profile for our seed to grow in. In late August, we got hit pretty hard with a wave of fall armyworms. These guys aren't very common in this part of the United States, and by the time we found out what was going on, it was a little too late. They burnt down about 80% of the playing surface. Luckily, these pests just eat the leaf blades. They don't eat the crown of the plant, and they don't eat the roots. So I guess a silver lining is they didn't technically kill it, but they basically delayed the opening of this tee box until the following spring. So what we did was we continued to overseed throughout the fall and fertilize, and then also the same thing in the spring. We're only a day away from opening the newly expanded tee on 11 lakes here.
been about 2 weeks since our last overseed, and it's coming pretty well. Right now with the weather, it's actually kind of fluctuating up and down, but we had a stretch of really warm temperatures, really got that ground soil warmed up. Started to get a lot of weeds that popped up. I'm kind of weary of spraying herbicide during this time, especially with newly sprouted bent grass. But I did spray a little bit of herbicide along with some growth regulator in our last tea application, which was about 3 days ago. The grass has grown like crazy, so every time we mow it, we're removing more than just a third of the leaf tissue, which is kind of a general rule of thumb when mowing grass. So it's like every time we mow it, it kind of gets a little yellow and not really liking it, but eventually it'll get used to that, and eventually it's going to start slowing its growth down when that regulator gets in there. But it's been a long journey. I've made some mistakes along the way, learned a lot of things, and we should be able to get a lot of valuable teeing space out of it.